Okay, so we're going to look at the last review for category number 3. We're going to look at writing and solving systems of equations. So we're going to open this up and we are going to look at writing systems of equations. Remember, a system of equations is where you have two linear equations. So you want to write them both in y equals mx plus b format, or for word problems, you're going to be writing them possibly in standard form. Okay, so we're going to look at the first system that we have here, and if you notice, both of them are tables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the equation in my calculator. So I'm going to do stat enter, and I'm going to type in all my x values for table number 1, because I'm going to call that equation number 1. Okay. And then I'm going to go to L2 and I'm going to type in my y values. I'm going to go stat, I'm going to arrow over, and because this is a system of equations, it's got to be linear, so we are going to pick option number 4. I'm going to arrow down to calculate, and I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to say A is equal to, make sure I got my, oh, that's supposed to be 0. So you want to make sure, double check that you've typed things in. So I'm going to go stat, arrow over again, I'm going to press 4. And I'm going to get A is equal to -1 and B is equal to 7. So that means my first equation is going to be y equals -1x plus 7. So now I'm going to do the same thing for table number 2. I'm going to go ahead and clear my memory, and I'm going to go to stat enter, and I'm going to type in all my x values. I'm going to do stat, I'm going to arrow over to calc, I'm going to press 4, and then I'm going to say A is equal to 1, and B is equal to 1, and that's going to be y equals 1x plus 1. Now, when you write your system, you usually write them with a bracket so that they know that they are meant to be together as a system. So y equals -x plus 7, because you're not going to see that 1, you're just going to see the negative sign. And then my second equation is going to be y equals x plus 1. And there is my system of equations. Now for a graph, what you're going to do is you're going to look to find the slope of each line and the y-intercept. So I am going to call this graph that I highlight yellow equation number 1. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that. And it doesn't really matter which one you designate as equation 1 or 2, just as long as you know that you don't repeat any information. You don't get mixed up. Okay, so I've got my y-intercept of 1. So it's very easy to see where it crosses the y-axis. And so now I'm going to find the slope of this line. And I'm actually going to use ordered pairs to do so. So I am going to use the ordered pair 0, 1. Because that's a nice ordered pair to use. And it also appears that it passes through 4, 3. So I'm going to use my slope formula to find my slope. So I'm going to need my y values. So I'm going to do 1 and 3. And now I'm going to do my x values, because it's y minus y over x minus x. Since I use the 1 first, I have to use its ordered pair match, which is 0 for x. And then the 4 is the ordered pair for 3. And so now I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm just going to type this in all at once. And so I'm going to type in 1 minus 3, 0 minus 4, and I get a slope of 1/2. So m equals 1/2. So I know my first equation is going to be y equals, I'm going to have a slope of 1/2 x plus 1. And that does seem to match with the slope because it's positive, and that does look like a puff positive line. So now I'm going to find the equation for line number 2, which I'm going to highlight pink so I know which line I am getting information off of. And again, I can very clearly see my y-intercept. It crosses at -3. Okay, and now I want to find my slope. So m equals, I'm going to use my slope formula. And again, I'm going to use my y-intercept point, so I'm going to use 0, -3. And then I'm also going to find another good point off of this line, and it appears it goes through 4, -5. Alright, so I'm going to plug in for my x and y. So I'm going to start with my y values. I'm going to plug in -3 and -5. Again, with the slope formula, the subtraction sign is not the negative on the y value. And because I use -3 as my first y value, I have to use 0 as my first x value, and then 4. Alright, so now I'm going to type this in all at once. I'm going to say -3 minus -5, and then I'm going to say 0 minus 4, and I get a slope of -1/2. And if I do a quick check, my slope is negative, and that does look like a nice negative line, so I do know that my slope is a reasonable answer. So I'm going to write y equals -1/2 x, and then -3. Alright, so now looking at the real world problem, so we're going to take these English words and we're going to turn them into math numbers and symbols. So it says the perimeter of a rectangle is 72 inches. The length is 6 inches greater than twice the width. Write a system of equations that represents the length W and the width. The length L and the width W of the rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say that this is important. And this is important because they're telling me what variables to use. Everything else in this sentence is just instructions. I know that I'm going to write a system here. So I'm going to have 2 equations. Alright, so let's look at the first sentence. The perimeter of a rectangle is 72 inches. Okay, so words like the, of a, inches, the units of measurement, you can get rid of. Okay, so now I'm left with the word perimeter. Well, if you think about a rectangle and the sides that are on it, you have 2 lengths and 2 widths. How do you get the perimeter? You end up adding all the sides. Well, I'm going to add up my 2 lengths. That would be 2L. So there are 2 lengths. And then I would add up how many widths I have. Well, in a rectangle, you have 2 widths. So I'm going to go ahead and label this width, width, length, length. Okay, so you would add up all the sides. Well, I don't have any numbers, all I have are variables, so that's why I'm using L's and W's. And when I add up the length and the width, it better equal to 72 inches. So better equals 72. So there's one of my equations. So I've got 2L plus 2W is equal to 72. Put my variables in here. Alright. So that's equation number 1. Now I'm going to go to the second, and I've written the second sentence down here so we can look at it a little bit closer. Again, words like the, inches, don't really mean anything. Okay, length. Well, how would I turn length into a symbol or number? It's going to be L. Is another word for the equal sign. Okay, 6. 6 greater than. If you are 6 greater than something, you have added 6. So we are going to have to add 6. Okay? And then twice. Twice means you are multiplying by 2. And what are we multiplying by 2? We are multiplying 2 by the width, which I can turn into a symbol. So here is what our equation looks like. We're going to have L equals, now if you're adding 6, you do it after, so we're actually going to put the 6 greater than at the end. We're going to add 6. Well, what are we adding 6 to? Twice. Twice what? 2 times and W. So our last equation, to write the length is 6 inches greater than twice the width. In math, we would say the length is equal to 2W plus 6.